Coming up, what new studies are saying about the effectiveness of COVID-19 vaccines, and why the Red Sox delayed their opening day today. Welcome to WEBN News. I'm Carly Bronkma. We begin with tonight's top stories. An ongoing Phase 3 clinical trial of the Pfizer vaccine showed us it is over 91% effective against severe diseases for 6 months. Dr. Anthony Fauci says this means protection from the vaccines are likely to last longer than 6 months. The Pfizer vaccine appeared fully effective against the variant of the virus that is prominent in South Africa. A trial done on Wednesday also showed the vaccine is 100% efficient for volunteers ages 12 to 15. Baseball fans are disappointed after the Red Sox opening day was rescheduled. The game was delayed due to predicted rain across the area. Red Sox president and CEO Sam Kennedy said, quote, "The decision to postpone our first game of the season was not made lightly. Tomorrow's game will begin at 2:10 p.m. Officials are excited to see fans in person as Fenway Park will be filled to 12% capacity. 100 of the 4,500 seats were reserved for healthcare heroes. Over 1,000 students are scrambling after Becker College announced it will be closing in August. Chairwoman of the Board of Trustees, Christine L. Cassidy, made the announcement on the school website. The board voted to permanently close the school at the end of the current year. The college has been open about its financial struggles, which were worsened by the ongoing pandemic. The main campus of the school in Worcester, and there is a secondary location in Leicester. Mayor Kim Janey is attributing the rise of COVID cases to young people. In a press conference Tuesday, she said that most of the new cases in the past weeks have come from residents under the age of 29. The city's test positivity rate has increased to 4.2%, which equals about 170 new cases a day. However, the vaccination rate has also increased, and Janey reported that more than 30% of Bostonians have at least one dose of the vaccine. It was a pretty rainy start to April today. We're joined by our weather correspondent Sydney Cohen about what we can expect as we move into spring. Sydney?
Thanks, Carly. Well, today's April 1st, and those spring showers have already arrived, as you can see. It is currently on the chillier side in Boston, with today's temperatures in the mid-40s and windy. Tomorrow and Saturday will be sunny, but don't get too excited as we go into next week. Expect it to get cloudy and windy, with temperatures staying in the mid to high 50s. As spring continues, I know I'm hoping for warmer weather and sunnier days. What about you, Carly?
I definitely am. Thanks, Sydney. A former Boston police captain will appear in federal court on Tuesday. Richard Evans was arrested in the connection to the investigation of overtime fraud at BPD. Acting Massachusetts United States Attorney Nathaniel Mendel released a statement saying, quote, "The public counts on police supervisors to lead by example and serve as models of honor, integrity, and professionalism." Evans was in charge of the Evidence Control Unit and allegedly received over $12,000 in overtime he did not work. He also signed off on many fraudulent overtime slips from his subordinates. Many have been gathering to speak out against the recent spike in anti-Asian American violence in the U.S. Our reporter Amrit Panu joins us from a rally in Roxbury this weekend.
I'm here in Roxbury, Massachusetts, where an anti-Asian hate rally is happening right now. This is one of many rallies happening across the United States.
The nationwide rallies are a result of multiple hate crimes directed towards the Asian community, such as the recent Atlanta shooting.
When I look at those grandmothers and grandfathers, I see my grandmother and grandfather. That could be my mom and dad in 20 years.
Speakers at the event like Gabby Ballard and Sharek Prakar agree that historically, the United States government has played a large role in the hate crimes occurring against minority groups.
This massacre really highlights how both Asian Americans and Black Americans are on the receiving end of vicious state violence. The U.S. government has both economically, politically, socially crafted these stereotypes, these racist caricatures of both communities, and really use those to turn folks against each other.
Demonizing one sort of community also leads to a broader demonization. So just as our Sikh brothers and sisters were at the receiving end of violence that was intended towards Muslims, we'll see all Asian people being at the receiving end of violence that's intended towards the Chinese people, and especially towards the Chinese government. We're going to see anybody that seems Asian, anybody that seems Chinese in the eyes of the sort of general American media is going to be a victim.
Manny Chong believes a unification of minority groups can make a huge difference, even if it is just on a local scale.
Like you got the Vietnamese in Dorchester, you got Haitian Caribbean, you got Spanish, you got Cape Verdean, you got Cambodians in Lowell. Like, how do you bring these people together to fight? To acknowledge each other, set aside differences. There's still so much division ethnically, and it's just saying if we're gonna really stop injustice, period, we gotta come together, and that's the efforts that I'm focused on.
From Roxbury, I'm Amrit Panu. Back to you.
When we come back, the latest updates in the Derek Chauvin trial and why a new voting law in Georgia is facing backlash.
Today I'm going to talk to you about physics. Come on in, girls. Let's go. This is the first rocket to get humans to Mars.
Really tall.
I'm a rocket structural engineer, designing and building parts of the rocket. You are the generation that will be stepping foot on Mars. Do I have a group of astronauts on my hands?
Yes.
You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
They call me Maxie, but I prefer tripod. I was your above-average four-legged homie, and then wham-bam minivan. Some people pity me. Now that's lame. I still run, fetch, and swim. And the ladies love me. I'm the ultimate wingman. Just don't ask me to high five.
Welcome back. As vaccination numbers increase, the U.S. is still being hit with a surge in COVID cases. The Biden administration is trying to reduce vaccine hesitancy. Many populations, including evangelical Christians and Republicans, are still refusing the vaccine. Public health officials are worried that this resistance will impact herd immunity and cause more spikes in COVID cases. In Massachusetts, eligibility for the vaccine will be open to most people over the age of 16 in the next month. Today is day 4 of testimony in the trial of former Minnesota police officer charged with the murder of George Floyd. 10 months ago, Derek Chauvin kneeled on Floyd's neck for nearly 9 minutes. Witnesses we heard from today include girlfriend Courtney Ross and both paramedics who arrived at the scene. EMT Seth Zachary Bravender said Floyd was unresponsive and, quote, his heart wasn't pumping blood. One of the key moments of today's trial came from Maurice Hill, Floyd's friend, who was in the car with him when Chauvin approached. He invoked the Fifth Amendment and refused to testify in the case. We now go to our political correspondent, Jillian Kay. What's happening in politics, Jillian?
Thanks, Carly. We're seeing a major shift in politics this week. President Biden announced a $2 trillion infrastructure plan on Wednesday. The proposal aims to improve job training efforts, transportation, affordable housing, and care for the elderly and disabled. In order to attain the full amount of funding needed, the corporate tax rate will rise to 28%. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says he is, quote, not likely to support the plan due to tax increases. Biden defended the plan, saying, quote, these are investments we have to make. Biden also said he will unveil the second part of his plan in a few weeks. This declaration comes after the passage of Biden's $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief package from earlier this March. Former President Trump's coronavirus response coordinator, Dr. Deborah Birx, sat down with Dr. Sanjay Gupta and shared her thoughts on the Trump administration's response to COVID-19. Birx says almost 450,000 deaths, quote, could have been mitigated or decreased substantially had the Trump administration been more proactive in their defense against the virus. Speaking of former President Trump, 2 U.S. Capitol officers are suing him under accusations of inciting violence on January 6. The riot left 5 dead and injured more than 100 officers. The officers filing the suit were repeatedly assaulted and are seeking damages in excess of $75,000. One of the officers was pinned down by a rioter, while the other was chased by groups with flagpoles and chemical spray. When asked about the basis of their argument, they said, quote, "His words and conduct gave direction to and aided and abetted his followers in the commission of assault, battery, and intentional infliction of emotional distress." This legal action follows similar lawsuits brought about by Democratic lawmakers. March Madness isn't the only major event in college sports this week. On Wednesday, the Supreme Court analyzed the logistics of the NCAA amateurism model. This model would allow college athletes to receive compensation for playing their sport. All 9 justices were able to ask questions regarding their concerns. A majority said they could not see a plausible way for amateurism to make a comeback to college sports. Although it may have worked over 100 years ago, the NCAA was founded. The world-renowned College Sports League has grown into a multi-million-dollar corporation since then. So due to the tremendous growth, the Supreme Court does not see a way for college athletes to get paid while still upholding an educational aspect. In other words, they are questioning how they can pay college athletes without compromising their amateur status. Without this status, they are considered professionals. As of right now, there is no final decision, and this is an ongoing debate which we will continue to give you updates as it unfolds. That's all for politics this week. Carly, back to you.
Georgia officials are facing a federal lawsuit because of their new voting law. The NAACP says the law restricts voter access and is, quote, intentional discrimination, end quote, against black voters. This is the second case since Georgia Governor Brian Kemp signed the bill, which limits drop boxes, requires IDs for absentee voting, and makes it illegal to hand out food or water in voting lines. Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock opposes the law.
This is voter suppression, pure and simple. These are politicians who are so focused on maintaining their power that they're willing to do anything to stay in power, including undermine the basic tenets of the democracy itself. We have to push back hard. This is a 911 emergency for our democracy.
The bill has received nationwide criticism. There have been ongoing fires in Nepal. Our international correspondent, Amog Matthews, has more on the story. Amog?
Thank you, Carly. Citizens of Nepal are suffering as the country deals with one of its worst fire seasons in recent years. Nepal's dry season typically runs from late fall to early summer, with the most severe fires in March and April. The country has reported 2,087 forest fires nationwide since November 2020. Currently, there are still over 500 active fires burning across the country. Satellite photos of Nepal show valleys covered in gray smog. As the fires rage, the country's air quality is severely deteriorating. Harmful microscopic particulate matter, smaller than 2.5 micrometers, is polluting the air. Such small sizes can leave pollutants lodged deep in the lungs and pass through other organs in the bloodstream. Government officials held an emergency meeting last Sunday and closed all schools due to the pollution and health risks. Before the fires, Nepal was already in a prolonged drought. The pollution ash from the fires will remain stagnant in the atmosphere because there is nothing to blow or wash it away from the air. Officials say that this will last at least for a couple of days. There is good news, however. A rain system moving across the area will usher a 40% chance of wet weather. Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal, usually averages about 34 millimeters of rainfall in March, but this year it has only recorded over 6 millimeters. Back to you, Carly.
Thanks, Amog. After the break, we have the latest from the sports and entertainment worlds. Don't go anywhere.
Did you know bicyclists are often injured by vehicle doors opening into their path? To prevent hitting a cyclist with a car door, drivers should use their right hand to open the door, which forces them to look back over their shoulders so they can see people approaching on bicycles. Passengers should do the same using their left hands in case someone is riding a bicycle to the right of the vehicle. This simple safety procedure is an important step in keeping our roads safe. Remember, scan the street for wheels and feet.
Welcome back. Everyone is talking about Lil Nas X's newest music video. Our entertainment correspondent, Anthony Labruto, is here to explain the controversy.
Thanks, Carly. People are still talking about Lil Nas X's new video, Montero. Call Me By Your Name has been streamed 34 million times on YouTube. Many were quick to criticize some of the suggestive scenes in the video. Lil Nas X said that he hopes his music will, quote, open a dialogue about continuing omnipresence of repression among LGBT youth, end quote. The release of the song comes at a particularly important time for the artist. Almost 2 years ago, Lil Nas X released his immensely popular Old Town Road, which hit #1 on the Billboard Top 100. Nas X has focused the video on challenging male style norms by entering a video via a stripper pole and sporting a Marie Antoinette costume throughout. Nas X said initially that the video's infamous striptease made him uncomfortable, but challenged his boundary of self-expression. He said, quote, "Throughout quarantine, I've kind of grown into myself a lot more and become much more of a confident version of myself," end quote. Back to you at the desk.
March Madness is heading into its final few games this weekend. Our sports correspondent Ben Aliber is here with more on which teams you'll see on the court.
Thanks, Carly. For the first time since 2019, March Madness is back. The Final Four will be played this Saturday, April 3rd. The first game will consist of number 2 seed Houston and the number 1 seed Baylor, with tip-off at 5:14 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The other game will be between the number 1 seed Gonzaga and 11 seed UCLA, also on Saturday, with tip-off taking place at 8:34 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Houston could upset the number 1 seed Baylor to make it to their first NCAA championship game since 1984. UCLA has a tough hill to climb, though, if they are to win their game as they face off against the best team in the country, the undefeated Gonzaga. Gonzaga is undefeated and stands a chance to win their game and reach their first NCAA championship game since 2017, where they lost to UNC 71-65. It's been a wild tournament this year. Every March, millions of people compete to try and make a perfect bracket. Warren Buffett offers anyone who has a perfect bracket $1 billion. For the first time, though, since the bracket challenge started in 1977, no perfect brackets made it past the round of 32. But hey, there's always next year. Back to you in the studio.
A dog in Natick is being hailed a hero after alerting her owners to a fire. Eddie, the farm dog, started barking at 4:30 a.m. when a fire overtook a 200-year-old barn. The property was developed into a community farm in 1975 and gets about 20,000 visitors a year. The fire destroyed the barn and killed 16 pigs living inside, as well as thousands of dollars in farm equipment. A GoFundMe was started, which has already raised $260,000 out of its $400,000 goal. The farm owner posted about the dog saying, quote, "She loves the farm and clearly wants to take care of it. Now she's not only my love, but my hero." Thank you for tuning in to WEBN General News. For more, please visit our website, WEBN.TV, and check us out on YouTube. I'm Carly Bronkma. Have a good night.